It's really warm in here. Greetings patrons, in this extra credit video I'm going to go over the entire adventure of the Power Treads. It all started in BlizzCon 2017 in November. We were wandering around the convention and we were up at the Dark Moon Fair and Bill and I spotted Day 9 across the room. Sean, also known as Day 9, is an online personality that does lots of video game playing. We got into watching him back when we were at Microsoft because he did StarCraft replays, and his videos were always so much fun to watch. And he still does all of that stuff as well as so many other things. Like he was at E3 this past year on stage during the PC press conference. So we've been following his work for years, and this is the first time we've seen him in person. Also, back in the day, Bill made his pylon lamp, and part of the reason he made that was a commission for Sean. I think it was a present for him, so he didn't know where it came from or who made it. At least we thought. When Bill went up to talk to Sean, it turns out that they both follow each other, and they hit it off, and Sean said he had an idea for a costume and wanted to talk about it with us later. It turns out Sean wanted to have some kind of costume for the Dota 2 International Tournament, which is August 2018. And not just any costume. We were picturing, armor from the game, or, one of the crazy characters, or at least some props. No, he wanted to cosplay the Power Treads, which is an item, this guy. And we were like, do you want to be in the shoe? And so then he sent us a concept art, which you saw in the video, this lovely number. So his head and feet would be sticking out and he could scurry around in the boot. And we were like, this is the coolest idea ever. I don't know if he was worried that we would think it was, silly, but it's like, no, you don't understand. It's silly in a good way. I love costume ideas like that. It's something that no one has done before, and I love that kind of challenge, so I was really excited to start building it. We did have a lot of stuff to do over the past couple months, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do it for the Dota tournament, so I didn't get to start on this project until July, which is actually kind of a good thing because my original concept was this guy, and I was thinking I was going to use a material that I was comfortable with, EVA foam. The tournament was going to be in Seattle, so we could just bring it over there, and I don't know, maybe it would end up at Valve later or something if Sean couldn't figure out a way to take it home. Then I was starting to think about upholstery foam. Maybe it would be a good idea to do a mascot style costume. That would be good for me to learn, and it would be a good tutorial video. As the months went on, the Dota tournament got moved to Canada, up in Vancouver, and we were like, oh, it's gonna have to fit in some kind of container to get there, not just barely fit in the back of a van. I mean, I guess we could still do that, but I started thinking about inflatable ideas. Those T-Rex costumes, I love them so much, the ones that inflate and have the fans on either side. They're just so hilarious. I was looking into how those were made, and then I started looking at pool toys, and I like the idea of having a shoe that could inflate and then maintain its inflation and not have to rely on fans. It could just exist like a pool toy does. And I was looking around online and I couldn't really find any tutorial videos for building your own from scratch. There was one YouTube channel, I'll link it down below, it's called Heath Dragon. He goes over a lot of different kinds of inflatable toys, the really large ones. He even has some videos on how to repair them, how to modify them a little bit. And that's where I learned about the vinyl contact cement, was from his channel. And he did go over how to do heat welding seams, but he couldn't really get a good heat weld either with just an iron at home. And I tried it and it had the same problem. But another one of his videos, he made a beach ball from scratch using the vinyl contact cement. So I was thinking that I could get some vinyl and glue it all together and have an inflatable shoe. And it would be, perfectly airtight, and it would be comfortable to wear, and there would be this big hollow cavity in the inside that you could stand in and have lots of room. And in my head, this all made perfect sense. But when you scale something like this up 18 times, everything gets way more complicated. With just the vinyl, this wasn't too heavy, but adding all of the straps and everything on it, even just the weight of the vinyl fabric and the fur on the top and everything, it ended up weighing 3 times as much as I thought it would. So with the vinyl, it weighed the fabric and everything weighed like 2 times more than the vinyl. So with all that weight pressing down on this giant inflatable shoe that I made, it was getting leaks no matter what I did. I would like patch a leak and then another leak would show up and I'd patch another one. It was just too much pressure involved. And at that point, I was about ready to scrap the whole project, and which is a bummer. If it was for me, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but since it was for someone else, I just don't like letting people down. And I thought I had this project in the bag, but just the leaking problem was so annoying. So I went back to thinking about the T-Rex suits and their continuous running fans. And those suits are made of non-breathable fabric. So like air doesn't go through the fabric, but it's just sewn together. So if you like pull at the seams, you can see through them. You can see through the stitching. So air just continuously goes out of them. Also, those suits, they have wrist and ankle holes. So the air just keeps leaking out of all the joints. So I was like, maybe one of those fans would be powerful enough for the shoe, even with all that extra weight on it, because I only have a couple leaks. I don't have, leaks everywhere. So this is all last minute. I only had like 2 days left to finish the costume. We swung by Value Village that had one kind of inflatable costume. I bought it and took out the fan, and the fans are actually really cool. Like, I kind of want to get more of them just to play with them. You can buy them on Amazon, just the fans as like, I guess, a replacement, which makes me worried a little bit about how long this fan is actually going to last if you can just buy replacements for them. But they kind of like screw together and go into the costume. So I had one of those, added it into the shoe, and it works great. However, the fan sounds a little angry, especially when you press on the shoe. Like the fan like spins up louder, like, and I'm like, I don't know if this thing's gonna last. So I kept working on the shoe with that fan running, and so far it hasn't burnt out, but I am recording this before the international tournament. Like, the shoe is sitting in a crate over there and it's getting picked up tomorrow, and hopefully it'll stay working for the international. I don't know if it will though, and that's terrifying to me. It's the first time I've had a costume that hinges on one thing. Like, if you make a set of armor and like some of it kind of gets beat up or falls apart, at least you have the rest of the armor. And like, if this fan goes out, the whole thing slowly deflates. It deflates pretty quickly now with the fur and straps on it, so it can't maintain an inflation. That's a huge bummer, but I am happy I stuck with it and added that extra fan, because now we get to at least try. And I really hope it works, but I guess I won't know until I think the main tournament's Saturday, so we'll see how the whole thing goes. I'll definitely pin a comment in the YouTube video for the Power Treads build if it worked or not, because by the time that video goes up on Monday, I'll know if it ended up working. Would I use this vinyl contact cement again? I think for small inflatable projects, it's a great idea. Or anytime you need to glue vinyl to other vinyl, it seemed to bond really well. The problem is when you go large scale, you just go through so much of it. Like, this doesn't spread as well as barge does. This seems to evaporate really quickly. And it's just as toxic as barge. It has toluene in it. So I always had my respirator on. I always had the big door open in our shop open. And a little bit did not go a long way. I went through 3 cans of this with all the modifications I had to do. So if you're doing like a small inflatable prop, I think this would be good. For bigger things, I think figuring out heat welding would be the way to go. Or instead do like the T-Rex costumes, where you use just the fabric and sew it together, and just have maybe a couple of those little squirrel fan things running all the time. If you didn't have any weight on it, I think that would stay inflated just fine, kind of like the inflatable Christmas decorations in the front yard. So if I did do that method for the shoe, I would probably paint on the buckles and stuff. I wouldn't actually add physical like fur and stuff on there. It would just be a silly painting. Maybe that's the direction I should have gone, but too late now. Oh, also, the way I tinted the vinyl, it was pretty neat, but it wasn't really effective for large pieces. I think you'd need a really big flat tray of dye and be able to lay the vinyl out and have it not touch itself, because it really like wants to stick to itself when it's hot, and that will affect the tint level. So I had like splotchy areas. And of course I ran out of dye really fast. I've never dyed things over and over before, like in batches, so I should have bought extra dye for that, but it was neat to learn. And I think if you just need a couple like small things or have a way to lay out strips of vinyl, that it's totally doable. I guess it's kind of the same way you would dye synthetic wigs, but I haven't tried that one yet. With this project, my confidence level was pretty high going in. I've made patterns before and made them bigger and put them together using things, but once I started working with the vinyl, my confidence dropped like crazy. I just had this voice in the back of my head the whole time saying that I should just stop and not keep going. But I had the materials, I had the vinyl, I still had contact cement stuff, and I was like, well, I'll just keep going. At least I'm learning stuff. Like, it might not end up being a project video. I might have to, disappoint Sean and be like, oh, sorry, we didn't get it working. And he totally would have understood. I'm just so hard on myself. There is always a time to just scrap a project and either start over or just, work on something else. And I was teetering on that line for quite a few days, especially when I couldn't get those leaks to stop and just the inflation wasn't where I wanted it to be. If I didn't have the idea of going with the little squirrel fan, I think that would have been a good time to stop. I wouldn't have wanted to just keep chasing leaks for days and days. I mean, that's where you start to run into the crazy person land of like trying to fix something that's unfixable. Also, if I was going to do this project again, I would definitely do a better job of figuring out how an inflatable thing can keep this shape. I did a little bit more research when I started noticing I had this problem of the inflation going inward and not having room for a person. I think huge strips on the inside that connect one wall to the other is a way to go. Having tiny connections, even ones that were like 12 inches long, that's a lot of force on either side. One of my connections already broke. The big one that starts here and goes to the inside, it's this really wide strip. So it's like 12 inches long and like 24 inches. That popped off. Luckily, it wasn't the side that I had to cut a slit into to insert it. It just popped off the inside. So it's just dangling in there. So now there's even less room in this thing. Something you don't have to think about when you make a hollow costume. Thank you for going on this story adventure with me. I just wanted to share with you that I'm not always confident when I work on projects, even though in the final video tutorial, it kind of looks like I know what I'm doing all the time. I most of the time don't. I mean, a lot of the things I do in this shop, I've only done like once or twice before. I think the only thing I'm pretty confident now with is some EVA foam armor. I think I'm okay with that, but everything else, I'm just like in the weeds. So hopefully this is a reminder to you that it's okay to take your time learning things, and if they don't work out, it's fine, and it's perfectly fine to modify your design and change it to try and, make it work. And it's also fine to just, stop if it doesn't work out. I don't think I'm gonna be able to relax until Monday when I'll know if this costume worked out or not. Thank you for watching, and if you want to continue this discussion down in the comments, either on Patreon or over on our YouTube channel where this video is posted, then I'll keep on chatting with you. Thanks again, patrons. Love you guys. It feels good to just talk about this stuff with you, so I'll see you on the next video.